Welcome to Certain Point of View, your first step into a much nerdier world. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on iTunes. Just go to certainpov.com. Thanks. And now your hosts, Ben Milton and Addy Thomas.
Hey, Nerf Herders, I'm Addy Thomas.
And I am Ben Milton.
Thanks for joining us for another episode of Certain Point of View. Today we're going to be talking about the Darth Maul and Darth Vader comics, not the Vol comics.
Oh, that would be a good mashup, though.
There you go. We're going to talk about the recent issues of those. And we're also going to be talking about the recent Han Solo news, more a little bit about, do we think it's a good choice or not to move on from Lord Miller to Ron Howard? What does it mean for the Star Wars universe? All that kind of stuff. Before we get to that, though, don't forget you can follow the podcast, all our social media. You can find out how to be a patron through Patreon. All of that is on our website, certainpov.com. All right, let's kick it off with the Darth Vader comic. So I have been hounding you.
You have been. You've been relentless.
to read this comic because I wanted to come back to some comic episodes.
Yeah, it's nice. It's nice to actually talk comics. I liked it a lot.
Yeah.
I think my problem with this comic is that you hyped it a little too much for me.
I definitely did because I was just desperately trying to get you to read the comic, but I know that the overhype probably devalued it for you.
Yeah, where I was like, okay, it was good.
Yeah,
it was good. I liked it. It was good. You hyped the opening scene.
Yeah.
Of the reshoot, if you will.
Yes, because it is a pretty major retcon in a way of, like, it changes actual dialogue from the no moment at the end of Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
Which is a standout bad moment.
Yeah, it is. It is.
And it changes it into something kind of cool.
Yeah, kind of cool is where I would put it. I wouldn't say like, oh my God, this like saved that moment for me.
Well,
it re-imaged it for me. Like it just kind of like
re-image is the right term.
It kind of gave it a little extra color, colored in the lines a little bit.
Yeah.
Whereas you had like a 6-second no moment.
I'll go as far.
You would have gotten like a 20-second movie moment. You know what I mean? Like I was like, okay.
I'll go as far as it does save it, only because there's some character moments in it. Like, you do have, like, first off, changing it from the overdramatic no to, like, 6 no's, like, no, no, no. Like, that implies, like, regret. You know, the whole, like, in that he killed...
Well, because you're getting the pictures along with what that no represents to him, where you're not getting that in the movie.
Yeah, and you didn't get that, absolutely, because you don't get that in the movie. But it would have been, like, if they actually intercut to him, like, trying to remember, like, what he did to Padme. Like, if, like, I thought she was still alive. Like, well, you know, like, if you even kind of have that internal moment. Like, that would... help, like, that does fix that movie if you could go back and re-edit that.
I wouldn't say it fixes it, but it fixes that scene.
You don't think it would?
I think it would help that movie. I don't think it would fix that movie.
I see.
That movie wasn't ruined by that one scene.
No, oh, that's true. No, absolutely. There's a whole lot of other problems. Like, I'm so in love with you is one of those standout lines that needed to really be reworked. But I do think it helps in not just the repeated no's, but then like that burst of force power that he unleashes that knocks back Palpatine. Yeah. Like that, like, to me, that was a major moment that I'm like, okay, because then that leads into Palpatine's, it leads into really shedding light on Palpatine and Vader's relationship. And I felt like, oh, that would have been a cool moment to see in the movie. Yeah. If you see, like, Palpatine immediately switch back, like, sort of even reveal himself a little bit more to Vader. Because at first he's a little bit more softer. He's like, he lets him kind of calm down, explains everything to him, like, kind of transition him into, like, it was his HR orientation for being a Sith. That pain and suffering is kind of a key part of it. It is employee 101 for being a Sith, for being my Sith apprentice. So you have that moment, and then you have him, like, totally berate and unleash and punish him for losing his saber and to not, like, ever touch him again with the Force.
Right.
Like that, like, that's a really big moment in their relationship. Yeah. And, like, to transition it from, like, oh, I was gonna help you save your wife, to now, like,
now you're
know
my
your
bitch.
role. Yeah, exactly. So, like, it makes it, like, it inform in the way that the other Darth Vader comic, the Kieran Gillen Darth Vader comic series, really informed like the moment where he realizes the Emperor lied to him, and that Luke is alive and is his son. Like that moment is such a key moment in that series, and you're like, oh wow, like that moment, the matters, I'm your father moment in Empire and join me, like that gave so much more weight. And to me, this like does the same thing for that. To give more weight and just to how the true sort of just how terrible that Sith relationship really is,
or great, depending on your definition of a Sith relationship.
That's true. But
this is why the masters always end up getting killed by the apprentice. By the way,
well, not always. Darth Maul did not get a chance.
Well, only because he didn't live long enough.
And Dooku didn't get to kill him either.
No, he didn't. But yeah,
he got blindsided.
He did.
You saw it wide-eyed.
Yoink! That never made a lot of sense to me. Why he didn't just go, "He's the Darth Lord."
Right.
He's the guy. Like, why didn't he ever say anything? I don't understand.
I thought he was expecting Palpatine to save him. I don't think he. I think Dooku was legitimately wanting to bring down the Republic and saw its
he never thought
flaws.
Palpatine would betray him.
No, I don't think so.
You think he was weird?
Yeah, I think he thought that he truly believed in their cause.
Yeah, I think if you know that your boss is a Sith Lord,
right? You should
know that. I feel like that should have been.
But do you and I guess
HR 101 again.
Right, HR 101. He didn't have that orientation.
He didn't have that orientation
because he was purely on the. He didn't reach that like stage. Like it was all just the manipulation in the same way he did to Anakin. I think he didn't get to that point.
He didn't get to that point where he got to get abused like Maul and Savage.
Yeah, because we never do see that. We see Dooku do those to those guys, but we never.
Well, where
really...
do you think he learned it?
Yeah, that's true. Well, but no, but actually, Palpatine commands Dooku to get rid of Ventress, and he doesn't want to. He always regrets doing it.
Yeah.
And Ventress feeling betrayed also like that
he chose Palpatine over her.
Well, she never finds out why. She just knows that suddenly Dooku's
trying to go on her.
Yeah, and whereas Savage is sort of is a creation out of the response from the Night Sisters for betraying Asajj Ventress. Mm-hmm. So he's sort of collateral damage out of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Dooku was sort of never really privy to the information that Maul and Savage got together. Later on, he's unleashed on them to like destroy everything Maul creates at one point. But he doesn't really get to know like the Maul Palpatine relationship.
I guess I always just assumed that if you're gonna be a Sith apprentice and you get a Darth title,
right, you should know.
Yeah, you should be pretty well versed in how shit goes down. Yeah, that there's only two, and somebody's gonna kill somebody.
Yeah,
because there's only two.
I guess there's sort of like an us against the world moment until like, and then
right. Yeah, obviously the apprentice is using the master.
Yeah.
To learn as much and become as powerful as possible. Like that's that whole dynamic.
Do you think that's a result of Old Republic lore? Because that feels like that's very apparent in Old Republic lore, whereas I would think because the Jedi are not as familiar maybe with the Sith code by the time of...
Well, that's interesting because they bring that up in the comic book of like where I forget which comic book it was, but they were talking about like, oh, well, like the Jedi... Or it was in the Darth Vader comic where he was like, well, he didn't really teach us much about the Sith or how the Sith, like when they're talking about the lightsaber, why the lightsabers are red.
Yeah. Or how they don't know the story of Darth Plagueis the Wise.
Right. And Anakin's like, well, like that wasn't really taught.
Yeah.
Like we didn't really talk about that.
Yeah.
And Sidious is like, well, or Palpatine is like, well, of course not. Like, they hid this stuff from you. Like they were afraid of it.
Right.
So I guess from that, like from Anakin's standpoint, it makes sense. And I guess like you could make an argument for Dooku because he was a Jedi. He was Yoda's Padawan.
Yeah.
Like maybe he just never really fully understood what the Sith brought to the table.
Right.
And Palpatine used that to his advantage and never really showed him that whole complete set in order to manipulate him to do what he needed him to do.
So that's also an interesting thing. Coming back to Vader, do you think, because we've seen now these two moments, like one here with like the birth of Vader in the suit and everything after Revenge of the Sith, where we're seeing this moment where Palpatine sets up, this is our roles, this is our relationship. And then, of course, in the Kieran Gillen comic, we also have the moment where he realizes, oh crap, the Emperor betrayed me and was totally manipulating me. Do you think without those moments that Vader, well, let's say without just the moment that he realized Luke is still alive, do you think Vader was going to try to overthrow the Emperor? I don't get the sense that he was ever planning to do that until he finds out Luke is his son.
No, you don't get that sense. But I also feel that given enough time, that would have been an inevitability of like just the pain and the torture of being Palpatine's apprentice. Like eventually you reach that breaking point of like, okay, enough's enough. I'm going to kill this guy or I'm going to die. Yeah. Like one of those two things is going to happen. Either Vader would outlive his usefulness to Palpatine and Palpatine would have him killed. Of which Palpatine was like in the comics is already like planning of like, all right, because he screws up the Death Star and Palpatine's like, all right, I got to find a new apprentice because this guy sucks.
He has a whole bunch of other like potential new apprentices that he's going to go through.
Yeah, and Vader ends up beating him because he's Vader and because we needed him in the next movie. But yeah, like I think eventually like enough shit would happen like that where either Vader would have been killed or he would have killed Palpatine. Right. I think that's an inevitability with that type of persona. Yeah. Like of Palpatine. When you're that big of a dick, somebody is, a bully. When you're a bully, eventually there's a guy who's going to come and punch you in the nose. Yeah. Like you can only bully for so long.
Right. So the other big development we have out of this comic, specifically Darth Vader #1, is the way a Sith lightsaber is created.
What did you think of this?
I love it.
Do you?
I'm totally down for this sort of addition to the Star Wars universe. And I don't remember what it was before, how a Sith had a red lightsaber.
They were synthetic crystals because all the Kyber crystals were taken off of, what's their homeworld? What's the Sith homeworld? Whatever it is. They didn't have Kyber those crystals, and they had to create a synthetic version of them, and that synthetic version of them was always red.
Okay, I wasn't aware of that one. So here, though, it is basically there is a living force within each Kyber crystal, and the Sith apprentice has, when they're forming their lightsaber, has to pour so much pain and suffering and basically kill that living force and make it bleed to turn it red. So there is an actual major sort of trial of suffering and
trauma
pain.
To the crystal.
Exactly.
Given to it.
Yeah, I think that is definitely an interesting way to do it because it also has to be taken from a Jedi's Kyber crystal. So you have to kill a Jedi to be able to take it, more than likely.
Well, they're probably not going to hand it to you. Honestly, if a Sith Lord showed up, I'd be like, yeah, take it, whatever. I'll get another one. It's cool.
Right.
I'm not going to fight you over it. That's crazy. Somebody can get hurt.
Yeah, so I like that.
The biggest pussy Jedi ever.
But I like that addition to the lore.
I think it's a cool addition. I really do. I think it's it's very metaphysical. It adds like a very religious, crazy sect kind of bias to it that kind of gets away from the midichlorians and brings it more back to the mysticism of being a Jedi and a Sith, which I that's a good thing to me. That's totally a good thing to me. I like that part. That was actually my favorite part of the first two episodes of them explaining like, oh yeah, this is how it works and this is what you've got to do to go get it.
I love Palpatine just taking him to a planet and I'm just gonna leave you here without a ship.
See ya, jackass.
Exactly. It was perfect.
It does kind of fit the tone of the robot chicken.
I know. I kept on hearing robot chicken Palpatine in my head when I was reading his lines. I'm gonna go get a cherry Coke.
Smell like bacon. Yeah, it was interesting. They did a really good job in those first 2 issues of you understanding that dynamic between Palpatine and Vader.
Yeah.
Now we've already had that with the previous Vader run of like understanding just how domineering Palpatine is to Vader,
right?
And how he manipulates him. But this one like really like it was even more personal this time. Like it was really in your face, personal.
I don't remember if I was reading it here or if this was from previous like Legends stuff. But did they say that 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 Vader's suit wouldn't be able to let him use Force lightning in this one?
That's an old EU thing. Yeah. I don't think they've addressed that since Disney's bought it.
It also doesn't seem likely that he can because he also doesn't have hands anymore. But we've never seen anyone shoot Force lightning out of their feet or just general torso.
Yeah, but I mean, can he not? Does it have to come out of tissue, or can he direct that lightning through the stump down through the electronics?
That's true.
Of his arm.
I feel
guess
like he would
probably short it out.
Yeah,
it would short it out, I guess.
And he dies right there on the spot.
Unless it's like AM, and then it's just like it's on the surface.
Yeah,
and then shoots out. Like,
I know old EU Legends also said that the suit was not even like current tech. It was like 5 models back. Like it was especially cruddy. Like there was processes that like it made it so painful for him to even like eat whatever paste that was processed for him. So he was always constantly miserable and constantly in pain. Like it was just pure agony for him.
So this is weird because like it's a contradicting argument that they're saying there, because the argument was that he gave him this stuff to keep him in a weakened state because otherwise Vader would be more powerful than Palpatine.
Yeah.
But then also a Sith draws his power from pain and suffering.
Right.
You think he would have given him like
even
teddy bears? He would have given him like the best
just regularly
food.
like Cadbury eggs.
Yeah. Here's some
here's
steak.
Flowers every Friday, Vader.
Yeah, you know, it's kind of
weird. That is true.
It's like, wait, which one are we going with? Because you're making him stronger, but you're keeping him like it's a very delicate balance, I guess, that only Palpatine understood. Because it doesn't make sense to me.
Is there a difference between like focused pain and suffering versus like constant like agony and pain and suffering? Because if you're like in constant agony and can't focus your power, like that, like I don't know. That's a tough one.
Yeah, but because
the lore and the reason is that he's always so angry because he's constantly in pain.
Right.
You know,
which makes sense.
Yeah,
makes sense. But at the same time, like it becomes debilitating. Like how can he function? Yeah, at what point do you lose the ability to function?
Because he does some pretty crazy stuff. Like the guy rides in on a TIE fighter to fight Ahsoka in great dramatic fashion. Like he at least had to think this was gonna look badass.
There's nothing else. Like, God, this hurts so fucking bad.
Oh, this is gonna be really metal.
I'm surprised he didn't have like speakers blasting on his way down.
Someone needs to edit, like, or change the soundtrack for that scene, just like to have it. Guitar solo as he rises up.
Oh, that'd be fantastic. Playing One by Metallica. Fantastic. I'm gonna have to do that tonight. Yeah, I don't know. It's weird because like a lot of that stuff is shifting. Like what we thought we knew about how Vader worked is shifting a little bit.
Yeah,
and it's kind of being like rewritten and recolored in to new ideas. Like even the Kyber crystal is that's a totally new idea. It's a great idea, but I don't know. We'll see where this goes. We'll see if it's able to continue the momentum that they've started in the first 2 episodes. I like the direction that they're going. I like the artwork. I like the writer. Yeah. Like everything seems to be really fresh and working well in that.
Yeah, I'm definitely a fan of the writer because this is Charles Soule or Sewell or whatever, the same guy who did the Death of Wolverine. So I definitely like what this guy does because like Death of Wolverine also had like a lot of really good sort of internal quiet moments. Like even Wolverine's death in that series wasn't like to save the world. It was to save a couple new Weapon X subjects, from being made and having to go through the same experience he did. So I'm excited about what this writer has to add to sort of this, basically what amounts to Darth Vader Year One.
Right.
Is the way he's really talked up this series. So I'm excited to what he has to say about that. So it'll be interesting. Let's move on to the Darth. Well, before we do that, issue 2 for Darth Vader, another interesting thing that they kind of brought in. I was really interested with that whole concept of the Barrage Vow, so now we have Vader on his quest to get his Kyber crystal to find a Jedi, because now they're like, first off, like, Palpatine destroyed everything that was wiped out from Order 66. So everyone who's pretty much who was current in the Order is out. So, Vader goes through some records to find someone who basically took the Barrage Vow, which is basically a former Jedi who decided, I don't want to be a Jedi anymore, and I won't use I'll use my Force powers on a very limited basis. I'm not gonna really use my lightsaber.
I'm not gonna get involved in anything.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm gonna have to. It will even mean I have to look away from certain things happening. I'm out. I'm done. I'm not gonna be a Jedi. Whatever. So that is a whole interesting concept, especially because we've talked a lot about what they've done to expand out the Force users.
So do you think Ahsoka took the Barrage Vow?
It seems like she would have had to, right?
Did she have time to?
Yeah, because she just straight up. It's implied. It doesn't seem like we had the time to, because in the scene, you see her walk out of the temple, and then Anakin catches up with her, and then she walks out. Mm-hmm. So we didn't see her take it. So I'm going to assume that she did not, based on what we've seen.
Right. Because
she's still using her Force powers. She decides to join the Rebel Alliance in a major way.
Who's going to tell her she can't? I mean, all the Jedi are dead at that point.
That's fair. Yeah, maybe it is. I wonder, I wonder if there is there clearly isn't a formal step that we missed in terms of the way that scene is edited for us to hey, I took the vow and now I'm leaving the temple. Because it is straight from the moment she says, I quit, she leaves, Anakin runs after and catches up with her. So there is no scene in between.
Right.
Because there is clearly also a record taken for, because Vader does look up, is able to look up back in the records to see who has taken the Barrage Vow and if I can find this dude.
The only reason I ask is not because I really care whether or not she took the vow. There's an interesting question of whether or not he would have went after her at that point.
You mean
if the computer pulled up her name and said Ahsoka Tano took the Barrage Vow, this is where we know her. Would he have gone after her at that point in time?
Yeah, because he can. You know what? The thing is, I think he would have assumed she. I think he would have actually assumed that she was killed in Order 66. Because here is one wrinkle to add to that. Because even though, we do know from Filoni, even though it's not, I don't think it is officially in the Ahsoka Tano book, I believe. But in the Untold Stories of Ahsoka Tano panel that he did, not this year at Celebration, but last year, he detailed sort of what he was going to do at the end of Clone Wars. The whole, because it was going to be... Not Cody, but Rex with the wolf. Remember, he talked about the wolf markings on the clone troopers, a special legion of troopers given to her to help take Mandalore back from Maul.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So,
but they were going to be set. They was set aside. It wasn't really a Jedi thing, though, right? That was like a special forces kind of these guys are free from the Republic.
Yeah,
we're
but
letting them loose to the Republic.
Well, it was given to her to command and take down there, but he did say that Order 66 was going to happen during that, and she was going to have to run. So she was going to have to go on the run from them there. That's where we were supposed to know that she was going to have to deal with the fallout of Order 66 at that point. So if we can treat that panel as canon, then he would have assumed
she died.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, okay. So then, if that panel is true, then she did not take the vow.
Yes, exactly.
And so her vow, okay. So we can just say it wouldn't have happened.
Even if it did come up and she had taken the vow, he would have assumed that she was dead.
No, because I guess
the clone trooper still
would have tried to kill her, right? But when I guess my impression was when the computer was giving the names, it was like these people are likely still alive.
Oh, right. Yes, that's right. If there was already the classification, I mean, the problem is it was a Jedi computer, so nobody would have gotten a chance to update those records.
That's true.
Yeah,
that's a good point too. Yeah, I mean, he could be on a goose chase for
unless
for
Jedi IT or not Jedi.
Right. Yeah, we just work here, man. We're just good contractors.
But I mean, the Jedi librarian was also a Jedi, so I have a feeling Jedi IT were Jedi.
Can you imagine being that guy? Like, you're so bad at being a Jedi, you gotta be like Jedi tech support.
Right.
Did you turn your lightsaber on and off?
Don't point it away from your face.
Talking to you, Luke. Skywalkers. Yeah, that vow thing, again, taking it back to more of a mystical feel. Like more of a church religion feel rather than like a scientific, you just happen to have these little creatures inside of you.
Right.
I think is a good move, is a good retcon, like a good fix for the Star Wars universe. I like that. I like the whole direction that Disney is taking Star Wars, because you have you have Chirrut and those guys, the Force of the Wills.
Right.
You're bringing a lot more mysticism back into the Star Wars universe that made it fascinating.
Yeah, expanding out the Force users in this universe has been a huge asset. I mean, who knows where Kanan and Ezra are going to end up, whether they're going to even still be alive at the end of Rebels.
Or Ahsoka.
Right, Ahsoka, obviously we had the Night Sisters, but they're also kind of wiped out at this point, Obviously we had the Guardians of the Wills with Chirrut and Baze, and obviously the rest of their crew was killed on Jeddah. So, but there's definitely room for more Force users. So it is fascinating to see those different orders and different interpretations, especially, from a religious perspective.
Yeah, and I like that. I think it makes... you go back to the idea of Star Wars feeling lived in.
Yeah.
Having actual mystical religious sects to me makes it feel lived in. Like if you just want to go pure science and explain everything through science, then watch Star Trek or Doctor Who. That's not Star Wars to me. I like Star Wars because of the mysticism. So I'm glad they're kind of bringing that back into it.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have that Darth Maul comic.
Yeah.
So Darth Maul comic, written by Cullen Bunn, same guy who did the Magneto series that we're also fans of.
Yeah.
Although I haven't finished the last 5 issues of that, I gotta read the last 5 and to wrap that up. Lost its way a little bit later on as some events got involved with that series.
Naturally.
This Darth Maul series is interesting. I actually really liked the first issue. But as I got into the second and third, I kind of started losing a little bit of interest. The action's picked up now in the 4th issue. So I'll continue reading it, but I probably won't stay current with it. I'm not going to subscribe to it from month to month. Well, what are your kind of thoughts on this
I like the idea. I like the artwork. I like the story. I didn't like the execution.
Yeah.
There's too much inner monologue.
Yeah.
Inner monologuing going on about how woe is me, I'm suffering and I'm angry and I'm going to take my vengeance.
Kill somebody.
And you can do a couple panels of that, but when 3/4 of your book is an inner monologue about how angry you are.
Not just 3/4, it's the whole series so far.
Yeah, it hasn't I lost interest in it by the second issue. I was like, okay, I get it. You're angry.
So that's interesting.
Because I think there's more to Maul than just he's angry.
Yeah.
And we saw that.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So that's an interesting thing because, that was one of the things that worked really well for Magneto. But I think what helped with the Magneto series is with that, you also, because it's very similar, he's a character that's full of pain and suffering and want to prevent that. in the future with Magneto, and but you do have flashbacks to his time in the Holocaust and Hitzig, the one particular officer that kind of follows him through his career and life early on, and even later on as well. So that creates a little bit more compelling reason for that monologue, whereas Maul, you don't have it's not like we're seeing what brought Maul to that place, even though we kind of already know that based on Clone Wars and the Night Sisters mythology. So it's kind of just statements out there without any actual substance to kind of back it up. So I think that makes sense why this one's not
quite hitting.
Yeah, it's
not that it's bad.
I think this series would have been better. So we've had Lando, Chewie, Han, Princess Leia, and the Obi-Wan and Anakin series so far have all been 5-issue arcs that are contain mini story just mini series rather than ongoings. And it feels like this needs to be just like one of those where it's a mini series and not an ongoing.
Yeah, maybe it would help kind of give it a little direction, a little more immediacy, because it does take a while to get going anywhere.
Yeah, and it's because since it is an ongoing, it is definitely stretching that out,
pulling that taffy a little too thin.
Right, and not that there isn't plenty you can mine from Maul's character.
He's an amazing character.
Right, because we've seen, especially with what they did in Clone Wars and then Rebels, consequently, and bringing that character to a close in a very effective way and memorable way in Rebels. You definitely know there is a back history to really kind of probe and develop. So yeah, it just seems like, but it seems like this particular story of his hunt doesn't need to be much more
let's get on with it.
Yeah.
Tell the story and move on.
Yeah. It to me, it helped a little bit in issue 2 to see once Cad Bane showed up, I was a little bit more excited, but then that started to disappear too. So I'm glad we're seeing Cad Bane again.
Yeah.
So that
I'd
is
rather,
sort of
honestly, I'd rather have a Cad Bane comic than a Darth Maul comic.
I think I'd agree with you on that.
To be perfectly
too.
honest, and it's not because I don't like Maul. I love Maul. I hate what they did with him in the movies, but everything outside of that I've loved. Yeah. So I think he's a fantastic character. It's just the inner monologuing for me was just too much.
Yeah,
I needed more action, more things going on. I needed to feel like the story was going somewhere. Him hunting a Padawan was meh.
It could be interesting, I think, maybe in the hands of a different writer. Not that I don't like this, because I definitely like this writer.
He's a talented writer.
I think Cullen Bunn would be great for a Palpatine series, because that inner monologue exploring Palpatine
might be better served.
Exactly. Could be a little bit, just because he is a more cerebral character. You don't need Sidious to, when Sidious starts jumping around and swinging lightsabers was when it felt a little forced.
I see what you did there.
But again, him as a master manipulator is what makes him so compelling and so interesting
and different.
Right, and to also see sort of what is motivating him to guide to be that Sith is also interesting.
And that's interesting. I said, kind of Maul is more complicated than what they've given him, but he's not really. I mean, at the end of the day, he is just sort of an angry guy.
Yeah, he gives us great action. And the thing is his anger after being kind of abandoned by Sidious and sort of his quest for revenge against Obi-Wan is what has made him so compelling.
Yeah.
So maybe a little I think a more action-driven series.
Well, the problem
really
is he talks a lot about I've been tortured and I'm suffering, but we don't know any of that.
Right.
We're just being told, he's just monologuing about this.
Yeah.
I'd like to actually see the pain and the suffering. Kind of like Dooku, the whole Dooku problem of did Dooku really actually not know that Palpatine was going to do this? I'd kind of like to see the pain and suffering instead of being told about it.
Yeah, that's true.
I'd actually kind of like to see it, because I think then you have a character that you can I get it. This guy really had this. He has a reason to be this angry.
Right,
he has a reason to be this motivated.
And because you ultimately also disagree with him, because you know that well, you don't know that it's necessarily propaganda fed to him by Sidious, but you ultimately disagree that, well, we know that the Jedi are good guys ultimately. We ultimately still feel that way.
Yeah, I mean, they're better than the Sith.
Yeah. Yeah. When it comes down to it, you're gonna side with the Jedi.
I'll take the Jedi over the Sith.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Fine.
Yeah, but yeah, so I think that's what also makes it feel maybe a little disingenuous there. So
yeah. I agree. It's not a comic book that I will probably subscribe to or purchase. It's one that I will read after its run is done. Maybe.
So you won't hear us do a current review of this
I'm not
series.
going to stay current on that one.
Yeah,
no.
I will stay current with Darth Vader right now. So it'll be like one of my 4 comics that I'll stay current with. The Darth Vader one will be, but not
Maul.
Yeah,
not Maul.
So
yeah.
Unfortunately,
I mean, it may turn a corner and get really, really good.
I'll find out later.
Got potential. It's got a lot of potential, and maybe it's
I'll read it when it's all on Marvel Unlimited.
It could end up being like one of like an NBC sitcom. It's going to need a year.
Second season.
Yeah, hasn't quite found its footing yet.
Yeah, I can see that. So the last thing we're going to talk about real quick is the Han Solo movie. That's had some major changes.
Yeah.
The news obviously has been out there. Lots of people have talked about it. Real sort of quick recap of it. We have Lord and Miller, the guys behind the Lego Movie, 21 and 22 Jump Street, Last Man on Earth. They have parted ways, and this is sort of unprecedented for most movies because they were already well into production. They were well into the shoots for this movie.
Halfway through.
Right. So they've parted. Both parties, both Lucasfilm and Lord and Miller have said it's due to creative differences. More and more information continues to come out from this story because we've heard Larry Kasdan and his son are, they're both writers. They're not crazy about the amount of improv coming out of Lord and Miller's, style of direction. And Kasdan, of course, wants them to stick a little bit more to the script. And then we've also heard that Alden Ehrenreich, who is playing Han Solo, who's casted by Lord and Miller, was a little concerned that the movie was starting to become more Ace Ventura-ish in tone. And then even more recently, we have heard Lucasfilm has hired an acting coach for Alden Ehrenreich. So right now, news is not
There's
optimistic.
no positive news
Right.
coming out from this story right now.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, unless you look at it from the perspective of, well, Kathleen Kennedy is the most successful producer in Hollywood ever.
Yeah.
She knows what she's doing. She's in control of this. And she's looked at it and said, okay, we need to make some changes.
Right.
And so if you trust Kathleen Kennedy and her track record, you go, well, it wasn't going well. And it probably was broken. And that happens. I mean, you have creative people in a room. Sometimes that creative process doesn't work.
Right.
It just doesn't. And sometimes, it looks great on paper, and then you get into a thing, and it's not. It just doesn't click for whatever reason.
Right.
And I think that's what's happened here.
Yeah, what's odd, though, is how long it's taken to get here, because typically that's the kind of thing you catch in pre-production.
Agreed. Yeah.
My concern has always, with this movie has been, because I wasn't particular, like this, young Han Solo movie has always kind of struck me like the Young Indiana Jones series. Like, I didn't really want this necessarily. Don't get me wrong, I was going to watch it no matter what. Like, I might as well subscribe to Star Wars movies. Like,
I'm surprised they haven't made that a thing yet.
Yeah, they might as well. Like, or like, I just need a big packet subscription. Like, give me all your books, your comics. Like, just like
Star Wars me up.
Yeah, the TV show. I want to get them on Amazon Video, please.
You're right.
That's where I'm building my movie and TV show collection. Now. Yeah, exactly. I'm getting not doing any more DVDs. Blu-rays are only for collector's editions. So all of just give me all of that. The movies, I'm gonna as soon as it comes out on Amazon Video, I'm gonna get the first version that's available. So
and the
put that
second
in
when
there.
It comes.
Yeah, exactly. just put it all in there, just on a yearly subscription for me to subscribe to for Star Wars.
That would be amazing.
I don't need a loot crate. That was so creepy.
Jesus Christ, J. Mike.
J. Mike is peeking over the stairs like Salacious Crumb without the comedy value of Salacious Crumb.
God, if Salacious Crumb had been creepy as fuck.
He's pretty creepy.
It would have been J. Mike. He's not nearly J. Mike level creepy.
J. Mike is kind of Muppety, too.
Yeah, well.
They're about as thin.
Jesus Christ, that scared me so bad.
I know, right?
Oh, I cannot recover.
You can come down and sit here, J. Mike. It's fine.
Just don't stare at me from the top of the stairs like some sort of monster.
It's gonna haunt him in his dreams tonight.
Oh,
he's gonna wake up in a cold sweat. He's gonna wake up and yell, "J. Mike!"
Jenny's
gonna be like,
"What the hell?
Why are you dreaming about J. Mike?" This has gone too far, man.
You can't go over to Addy's house anymore. Ruined everything, J. Mike. You ruined everything.
I don't even remember the last thing. I was saying I wanted a Star Wars subscription.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I'm surprised that they haven't done that yet because I mean, and then they just took it out auto draft.
Yeah,
like it was just something that came out of my check on a weekly basis.
Oh yeah, take it.
Forget it.
Like just like what, like $5 out of each check or $10 out of each check, whatever
you want. Just take it.
Yeah,
I'll work more. That's fine. So, yeah, I think for this movie though, I think it's okay.
Yep.
Look, it's not okay. From
it's a troubled production, so
you're halfway in. You're halfway into your movie. It's not working. But if you're in a position where you are halfway into your movie in a Star Wars movie and it's not working, at least they had the foresight and the recognition to go, "Hey, this isn't working."
Yeah.
Instead of going, "Well, we're halfway. We might as well just let's double down and go with it and see what we get and see if we can fix it in post." Which is apparently what they did with Rogue One.
Right. And so that's one thing. So we were talking about sort of like Star Wars tone and what this means for it, like in the bigger picture. Like ultimately, so Ron Howard is going to replace it. We're going to watch the movie. That's like, for me, I was a little bit more excited about this movie when I heard Lord and Miller were on it, just because like I like what they did with 21 Jump Street and 22 Jump Street and and the Lego movies. So like I was looking, like I thought like, oh, a more comedic slant on the Han Solo story makes a little bit more sense.
Yeah, it was a sexy pick for directors.
Yeah, and then Donald Glover got cast as Lando, and I was like, all right, I might actually really, really like this movie. And then there was also kind of news at Celebration that Kathleen Kennedy really hyped up Lord and Miller's sort of like retake on the draft that they put out there. Like their rewrite of it was like they've been hyping it up as like this is the best Star Wars script we've ever seen. And it wasn't just them saying it. It was like other people in Hollywood saying it too. So it was like, okay, this is not what I'm expecting out of this movie, but I mean, these guys are really talented. Kasdan, wrote Empire. He wrote Raiders of the Lost Ark. So, I mean, this is a really these are all not just A-listers, but well above A-listers. These guys are proven commodities in Hollywood since the 70s to today. Like we have a mix of talent from
yesterday and today.
Exactly.
Here's this is where I guess I get confused about it, because they're saying it's this amazing script, but these guys are not known for scripting. They're known for improving.
Well, they're known for rewrites and improv.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So that's where I think the rub lied.
Yeah.
I think Kathleen Kennedy and Kasdan love this script. I think that they love what's on the page, and they think that they want that translated onto the page. And I think these guys are more like, we really like what's on the page. Let's see what else we can do. Let's see how much further we can do with it and make with it. And sometimes you come up with gold with that, like, and that's been proven even in Star Wars movies. You have improv lines that made it into the movies and made the movies great. And there's room for that. I guess in this instance, it wasn't working. That wasn't happening. And I don't think that it was necessarily the director's fault, and I don't think it was Star Wars' fault.
Yeah. To
be honest with you, it probably, and based on what was happening and kind of how this all broke in Hollywood Reporter's news, was Alden
Ehrenreich.
Ehrenreich. I cannot remember that kid's name.
I think you just don't want to avoid it because it has Reich in the name, and you remembering anything with Reich.
It's not good with my German ancestry. Like we know, just stay away from that. That's bad news. People get upset.
Right.
So this kid is like. When he's the one who said it kind of had an Ace Ventura feel. Right. And now they've gone and hired an acting coach for him, right?
Yeah.
So reading between the lines, and this is pure speculation, because what else are you going to talk about this at this point? Because there's really no news here, except for speculation of what's going on behind the scenes. I think like this kid doesn't have the acting chops to be able to pull off the improv comedy that these directors want and needed of him.
Right.
To be able to pull off the lines and stuff like that they were writing for him.
Yeah.
Right. So you have a great comedic Kazdan inspired script. You've got these two great improv comedy directors,
right? And
you got a kid who can't do comedy.
See, that's the one thing I'm unsure of, because this is the thing, the Alden Ehrenreich, who never impressed me from the beginning. Like again, like
where'd they find this kid?
Yeah, I have no idea.
This is the one time where I don't like Star Wars using an unknown name.
Yeah.
And an unknown quantity.
Yeah.
Like you got a character that like people know, they're already familiar. You can get away with that shit with Rey. You can get away with that shit with Jyn. Nobody knows who they are.
Right.
I mean, like, so whoever plays that role is the definitive role. But you've got to have somebody who can do a young Harrison Ford impression.
Yeah, and this guy doesn't. Yeah, it never struck me as it. Whereas, like,
he barely looks like him.
Whereas, like, Donald Glover, like, he definitely has the cool factor that Billy D. Williams has. So, like, that makes me like. So I'm like, I'm all about it.
And you got a tall guy who speaks weird to play a Wookiee.
Right.
Nailed it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Frankly, I think a better choice, like, if he's not the acting coach for Alden Ehrenreich, they should just get Danny Pudi.
Just to play him?
His Han Solo impression.
You're gonna white face him?
Yes.
You're gonna white face Danny Pudi,
or just make him brown. You know, I don't know. Whatever.
He's got to say his
appropriation. We're taking him back.
What's the skin disease where you lose pigment that Michael Jackson had?
Yeah, I don't remember. But J. Mike, do you know?
What's it called? Is it I forget what it's called, but just say that he has that. Han Solo has that.
That will be the part of the story.
And then by the time he ends up in the New Hope, he's like completely whitened out,
and like total face shape is changed and everything. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
I'm just saying.
Lago, thank you. Yes.
I'm just saying that Danny Pudi's Harrison Ford impression
be great
in Community was amazing.
Yeah,
that is one of my favorite Community episodes. Yeah.
So I think that's piecing it all together. That's probably what you got.
Yeah.
Is you probably cast a kid who can't play Han Solo and can't play a funny improvisational Han Solo.
Yeah.
And, at the end of the day, you're not going to replace him. You're halfway through shooting. So what do? You got to get rid of the directors, I guess, who are asking him to do so much improv.
Yeah.
And that's their style. And they went in knowing that.
Yeah.
They just cast the wrong kid. And unfortunately, it's costing those directors their job.
Well, and it seems like there was an attempt to work with them. And then, Lord and Miller didn't want the interference either. They pushed back on it. So it wasn't like the way Gareth Edwards, they brought in I think Tony Gilroy.
Yeah, I think Gareth was like, does my name still stay on the credits?
Right.
Because do whatever you want.
Because people really talked about even how like interviews with Gareth Edwards felt a little bit more neutered and stuff like that. So
he was like, it's not really my movie anymore. It's all right. It's like, wow, Gareth, that's what a raging endorsement for your own film. Your name's still on the cover, right? Yep. I still get a check. Yep. It's great. I love it. It's my favorite movie ever.
Yeah. So all right. So Ron Howard's going to do this movie. We're going to watch this movie. And you know what?
Jay Mike could have directed this movie. I'd go watch it.
Let's calm down. He's a Superman fan. I absolutely hope for the best from this movie, and I wouldn't be surprised necessarily to suddenly see like, hey, this movie's a whole lot better than I could possibly expect.
At this point, I think if you get a good movie, it's better than you expect.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like going into the pre-production, I think we were both expecting a great movie.
Yeah.
I think now, you expect a good movie.
Right.
Not that Ron Howard can't do comedy. Ron Howard has in the past, and yes, it was 20 years ago, but he had a string of really strong comedies.
So let's kind of extrapolate this out into like sort of the bigger picture of the Star Wars movie universe.
Okay.
So, there have like, I love Force Awakens. I love Rogue One. I know I love Rogue One significantly more than you like it.
Yeah, for sure. That is accurate.
So here's the thing. I like, especially when it comes to the anthology movies, the thing that excites me about the anthology movies is that I'd like to see different takes in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot of talk about, like, when they've talked about the reshoots with Rogue One, they were talking about how it doesn't really feel Star Wars-ish enough, and then that's why they did the reshoots. And that's kind of come through as well with, like, it seems, I don't know if it's necessarily implied or if it's been said, but that Lord and Miller were not necessarily doing something that was Star Wars-y enough.
See, I didn't hear that, and I don't get that feeling. I think that... with Rogue One, you're very limited in your tone of what you can do because you're going literally from one movie right into the next movie, scene to scene.
Right.
Right. So you are really constrained in your tone of what you can do with that story. I think that Lucasfilm did try to take a chance. I think they did want to do something different with this movie. They attempted it. I think they got the right directors. I think they got the right script writer. I think they did everything right except for hire the right Han Solo that couldn't pull off that vision.
So you're bringing it back to the actor, not necessarily the directors.
Yeah, I don't think it was the director's fault. I think Lucasfilm chose those guys. They have a track record. It's not like those guys ever made a real serious movie before. Like, they've only done comedies.
Exactly.
And they've, so it's not like they didn't know they were getting comedic directors.
Yeah.
And everybody is saying the script is really funny and lighthearted and cool, right? Everybody loves the script. So what's the problem? It's not the directors. It's not Lucasfilm. You just hired an acting coach.
Yeah. Where's
the problem? The problem comes down to the actor in this case. And look, we know that everybody else on that cast can act their asses off.
Right.
The only unknown is Alden.
Right.
He's the only thing that we go, I don't know if this kid can act. Everybody else, and Emilia Clarke, Woody Harrelson.
Right.
Donald Glover.
Yeah. And all of those guys supremely talented. I mean, Glover is like talented at everything he does.
Right. So what's the weak link in this chain?
Yeah.
He's the only unknown thing in this equation that breaks. And in my opinion, it comes down to him as just not being able to pull off what everybody wanted, and unfortunately, it cost the directors their job because of how they work.
Yeah,
and you pointed out to me earlier, like they've written like a manifesto of how they operate. It's not like Lucasfilm didn't know that they do a lot of improv, they do comedy. Like, everybody knows that.
Yeah.
And they hired those guys for that. So if it didn't work, it wasn't because Lucasfilm didn't want that.
Right.
And is suddenly getting cold feet on it. The way I read into it is that it wasn't working.
Yeah.
And they had to make a change because it wasn't working. They can't just put out a shit movie.
I'll be interested.
What else are you going to do?
Right. I'll be interested to see, obviously there's a certain expected tone for the saga films,
Oh, for sure.
Even
Absolutely.
subject matter.
For sure.
I'm interested to see, like we've gotten 2 stories already with both anthology films that are reminiscent of Marvel has done a great job with the MCU,
Yeah.
But, I think there were some people who would have liked to see, like, Patty Jenkins do Thor 2 instead of what we did get for Thor 2. Or, Edgar Wright, I'm fine with the Peyton Reed version of Ant-Man. It was a whole lot of fun.
It was great.
But we also saw Joss Whedon had his issues with the MCU. That was a little bit of a bad breakup, So I'm interested to see, like, when we get past this phase where anthology movies can run a little smoother in the process. Like, a director can follow, like, go through without necessarily reshoots from another director. Like,
well, even JJ had Kasdan leaning over his shoulder.
But he still did his own reshoots, which is different.
Yes, he did do his own reshoots, but Kasdan held his hands while he did them.
Right, but so here's my thought. So, like, I don't have a problem with someone go back and changing, like, significant portions of their movie and reshoots. Because, like, the Lord of the Rings movies, that's very well documented. And, like, so, and there are some really bad ideas from Peter Jackson that he fixed in post. And I'm so glad he did, because there was, like, he planned originally at the Battle of the Black Gate to have Sauron come back in, like, full armor, like, in human form, to have a one-on-one fight with Aragorn. And they filmed it that way, and they actually CGI'd a huge troll over it that is in the movie fighting Aragorn. So, you know, they redid a couple shots to fix that,
to make that work.
Yeah, so, like, I don't have a problem with reshoots, or even necessarily a studio needs to come in and say that, but there is a difference when you have when the studio set has the director themselves do it versus, hey, we're bringing in another guy to do this for you.
Right. Well, yeah, and that obviously happened with Gareth Edwards.
And I think right now, so, like, because I think,
do you feel that that's what's happened here?
In a much more dramatic fashion, just because Lord and Miller were like, their thought is, well, we don't want to change this. Like, Gareth said, okay, change this. I'm okay with it, and he still had a little bit of input still in that process. Whereas Lord and Miller were like, if you're going to bring someone else into this process, we're not interested, and we're out.
Do you think they said, we're going to bring someone else into this process, or do you think they said, hey, look, this isn't working, and this is the problems that we're seeing in the dailies, and each, like, these shots singly seem to be working, but when you start putting this all together, it's not working. And this is the script that we're trying to follow, and we're not getting the performance out of it. What do you guys want to do about it? My
thought, because again, Kathleen Kennedy is really good at what she does, is that was what the first thing she would have brought to them. She would have said, hey, this isn't working out, let's try this. And she got no's from them, because they are auteurs, at least in their,
their own mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Well, I mean,
they've got a great track record, but
yeah, I'm not going to take that away from them.
Yeah, but they haven't made $1 billion.
Exactly. Although those movies have made a lot of money,
but they're not Kathleen Kennedy money.
they also had an input on the Lego Batman movie, so they're doing some.
I'm not. Yeah, but they're not legends.
That's true. That's fair. Legends. They're not legends. Yeah, absolutely. And then of course I think it did escalate to, hey, let's bring in someone else to work with you guys so that we can make this happen.
What makes you think that?
Well, that was one of the things I heard from Nerdist. I don't know if necessarily, like, as a rumor, but not necessarily as, like, hey,
as
this
fact.
is
because I hadn't heard that.
Yeah,
that's why I was like, if they did, yeah, I can. I mean, I guess I feel like this. I feel like.
Do you think they went immediately? Like, Kathleen Kennedy went immediately from, like, because considering that with Gareth Edwards they did bring in somebody, like, I feel like she would have pitched that as a possibility to them.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. But I mean, I guess, we both work for companies, and I feel like making a Star Wars movie or a Marvel movie or any of these big movies that have an IP attached to them, right, is like working for a company.
Yeah.
Right. It's like, I know I have to dress a certain way. I know I have to talk a certain way, and I know I have to, behave a certain way when I'm at that job. Right. It's a job. Right. It's not my own thing. Like here in the podcast, I can wear shorts and a T-shirt and swear. I know I can't do that at my job.
Right.
Right. So to me, Star Wars is kind of the same situation. Whereas, yeah, great. I'm glad you guys are funny, and I'm glad you guys have made a lot of money. However, we're still making a Star Wars movie here. There are certain expectations, and we're trying to make a good movie here. And if it's not working, you work for us. So, and I appreciate that you guys have made great movies outside of here. However, this is our movie. This is not your movie at the end of the day. So, if they were asked to make accommodations for Star Wars by Kathleen Kennedy and Kasdan, I feel like you kind of got to, make that. Like, that's the price you pay
Right.
to say you made a Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I
think,
yeah,
like, I think
it's hard for me to quantify, like, definitively say that one way or the other, because I feel like there are moments where we say, sometimes we're glad, a director stuck to their guns, because
for sure,
like for Logan, and for Logan and Deadpool, like, it's very well chronicled that the studios were not necessarily like excited about those two movies.
No, but the studios eventually caved.
Right. Because the directors took a stand.
The directors took a stand, and the studios caved and said, okay, we trust you enough. In this case,
they didn't.
They didn't, and the director said, okay, this isn't good. This isn't a tenable situation for us.
Exactly.
Then, okay, it happens.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not blaming the directors. I understand where they're coming from.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry. Like, I'm going to side with Kathleen Kennedy and Kasdan on this just because of track record.
Yeah.
Like, not that what they were like. I think when you and I know this, when you're making something creative, you're in the process. Sometimes you're too close to it to see it clearly.
Right.
And then you look at it later and you go, "Wow, that was genius," or "Wow, what a steaming pile of shit we just made."
Right.
Like, even though I thought it was great at the time.
Yeah.
There's a possibility that maybe these guys were so invested into making this movie and so close to seeing it, through their own lens and their own perception, they didn't see that it was turning into a big pile of shit.
Right.
And Kathleen Kennedy had the judgment to say, no, this is a big pile of shit. I'm sorry, you guys. It's just not like we want. And I imagine she tried to make it work.
Yeah.
And I imagine they tried to make it work. I just again, it comes down to, that chemistry thing of when you get a bunch of creative people together. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And in this case, it didn't work. Now, whether or not Ron Howard can turn it into something that's great film, we'll see.
Right.
We'll see. It'll be good. I imagine it'll be good. It'll be safe. It'll have some great comedic moments left over from those guys that they'll be able to work into it. And the rest of the film will be good and funny because it's a great script by all accounts. And Ron Howard is a super capable director. And if they can teach this kid to act, it might be a really good. It might be a really good movie.
Right.
Or maybe you do turn it into a Lando movie.
Yeah.
And just have less of Han.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Because that's what I would prefer, honestly.
Yeah, maybe you rewrite some
stuff. Just because I want a little bit more mystique with my Han Solo.
Yeah, maybe you rewrite it a little bit and have, Chewie and Lando running around for a long time. Reshoot some of that, rework some of that, and then like Han kind of like they're in the periphery coming in and out. Yeah. Have the big gamble scene at the end for the Millennium Falcon and...
Well, and there's also the rumor that Sana Solo might be in this movie, too. I don't think in a major role, because it's definitely not Emilia Clarke.
Nope. Way too
Sana
white.
Solo is black. Han's first wife.
Lovely white.
Yes. Yeah, she's definitely not Sana.
No. It'd probably be a cameo if it is at this point, because all the major cast members are announced.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, well... Yeah, she could be supporting cast.
Yeah. So it wouldn't be a major role. She wouldn't be a big part of it.
Right.
So we'll see what we get. I think, I'm going to watch it. I'll probably watch it a couple times.
Yeah, of course. It's a Star Wars movie. I watched
all of them a couple times.
Yeah. I watched Phantom Menace a couple times.
Even the ones I don't like, I'll watch them. So, it's interesting. It's a lot more drama than you want to have in production.
Yeah.
A lot more drama. You want your drama on the screen.
Yeah.
Not out in the tabloids in the news like it has been the last 2 weeks.
Exactly.
So we'll see.
Yeah, let us know what you think about the Han Solo movie or the recent Darth Vader or Darth Maul comics or any other Star Wars comics. All of that, you can get in touch with us. All our social media is on our website, certainpov.com. And until next week, stay scruffy, my nerf herders.
Thanks for listening to Certain Point of View. Don't miss an episode. Just subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on iTunes. Head over to certainpov.com.